Labor won't stop the Liberals' levy on the banks. Well, alleluia, alleluia. It was one of my favourite lines from the opposition leader's budget reply speech, given he was responsible as part of the previous government for the deficits the member opposite was just speaking about. When common sense prevails, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. If only we saw more of it from those opposite, from the negative Labor Party opposite that oppose everything, that created the mess that we're in with these massive deficits since John Howard left and compound interest that many of them might not understand that's created the problem we're in today. No, Mr Deputy Speaker, the major bank levy is common sense. It's a fair call for Australian banks, which are the second most profitable in the world. Australian banks outperformed their international peers during the GFC. They work hard, they work smart and do well. And the member for Mallee before made a great point in his speech as well about how the banks were supported during the GFC as well. And the major banks are also major corporate citizens with a major social responsibility that flows as a result of their major market interest. We want our major banks to be the most profitable in the world. We want that. It's a good thing. And that's why the coalition government supports their success. We are also committed to reducing the debt that accumulated during Labor's decade of deficits, and we all have a role to play in that, the major banks included. The five majors together account for more than 80% of lending for housing, gross loans and advances, reporting total profits of more than $30 billion after tax. Their dominance and success is a result of more than just their strategy and savvy, Mr Deputy Speaker. They occupy, of course, a privileged position as providers of essential financial services and enjoy enviable success, which by anyone's measure represents an excellent return on investment. This bill requires of them a fair additional contribution given their concentration. The major bank levy will apply to authorised deposit-taking institutions with liabilities of more than $100 billion and will tip $1.5 billion a year into the public kitty. Estimates are that the levy will pluck roughly 4% from the bank's bottom line. That is something I urge them to consider as an investment. Australians are fortunate to have many banking options, and I am inspired by the success of some of the smaller banks, community banks, credit unions and building societies. It's great to see some energy in that sector. The Treasury Laws Amendment Major Bank Levy Bill will contribute to meaningful budget repair and address the debt accumulated by a decade of Labor deficits. We have a responsibility to reduce this debt now so as to avoid in becoming our children's unfortunate inheritance. The coalition government is committed to the responsible financial management of our nation's affairs. Budget 2017 represents a comprehensive solution to debt racked up under Labor. It addresses the rising cost of living, of increasing energy prices and supply, housing affordability. It eases the pressure on hard-working Australians and their families. It tightens the safety net that supports Australians in tough times and guarantees essentials, schools, pensions, infrastructure, healthcare. It provides relief for small and medium businesses and drives job creation. But the essentials cost money, and we cannot continue to live beyond our means. Those opposite, we know, have learnt nothing when it comes to that. At the last election, they promised to increase $16 billion in additional debt after the havoc they leashed on the nation during the Rudd-Gillard-Rudd years. That's why, along with providing necessary funding, Mr Deputy Speaker, Budget 2017 finds savings elsewhere, including the $6.2 billion over forward estimates as a result of the major bank levy. The levy is set in legislation at a rate of 6 cents of every $100 of specified liabilities and only applies to the big 4 banks and Macquarie Bank, which each currently have liabilities greater than $100 billion. It includes other bank brands operating under the same licence as the principal bank as well. It will be deductible for corporate tax purposes and consistent with ordinary expenses, does not generate franking credits. The levy, of course, does not apply, Mr Deputy Speaker, does not apply to deposits protected by the Financial Claims Scheme, which applies to protected deposit accounts of up to $250,000 per account holder. It also does not apply to mortgages. It also does not apply to additional Tier 1 capital held by the banks to help meet their capital requirements, which protect the stability of the financial system, or a bank's group's non-bank businesses. It doesn't apply to that. For example, insurance or superannuation. The introduction of the major bank levy is just one way the coalition government is securing brighter days for all Australians, and that includes the banks as they stand to benefit as a result of retention of our outstanding credit rating. Bankers historically have had a reputation for trust. In the generation before mine, and even now in some cases, the bank manager was and is an influential and highly respected member of the community. It would be good to see that same sense of community from the major banks, who might use this as an opportunity to build loyalty with your customers, to boost customer satisfaction and to do the right thing. Customers have tolerated increased fees, streamlining of services, cost-cutting measures and disappearing branches as well. The Deception Bay community in the Petrie electorate, home to more than 20,000 people, doesn't even have a bank. Doesn't even have a bank. And I've written to some of the banks on several occasions and asked them to set up a bank in Deception Bay, the Deception Bay community. We can't convince one of them to set up shop. It's a high-growth area and home to hard-working Australians, to young people, to retirees. They all bank their money but can't do so locally. With Deception Bay's 13,634 square metre shopping centre currently undergoing significant refurbishment, I hope they will consider moving into the neighbourhood. Many major bank customers have been banking with the same bank for all their lives, haven't they? It's a common thing. They signed up for the old school coin envelope and in their envelope primary school bank saver schemes and have remained loyal ever since. I'd say to the major banks, it's easier than ever to switch, and you can switch. You can switch to Bank of Queensland, Bendigo, Suncorp, Metway, whoever it is locally. You invest good money in actively working to communicate with and retain your customers. Absorbing the bank levy rather than handballing the cost to your customers would be an excellent relationship builder and an exercise likely to pay dividends. Ensuring a strong financial position, Mr Deputy Speaker, is in all our financial interests.